curators and thinkers to articulate their own perspectives, histories, and futures. Zimbabwe's presence will enhance its visibility among influential international stakeholders, fostering relationships that extend beyond arts into tourism, education, and broader economic partnerships. Zimbabwe is participating for the 8th consecutive year, having made its debut at the 54th edition of International Arts Showcase in 2011. Zimbabwe will be represented by the National Gallery of Zimbabwe, which will be running an exhibition at the pavilion at the 61st edition of the exhibition. The commissioner of the pavilion will be the executive director of the National Gallery of Zimbabwe, while the curator will be the deputy director. The pavilion will showcase 5 visual artists, namely Miss Eva Rath, Mr. Gideon Gomo, Mr. Felix Shumba, Mr. Franklin Zingai, and Mr. Pardon Mapondera, who will exhibit under the theme, and I quote, "Second Nature, Manyonga," close quotes. Honorable Vice President General retired Dr. C.G.D.N. Chiwenga visited Goa in India on the 19th of December 2025 to attend the celebration of the Feast of Santa Barbara at the Chapel of Santa Barbara. The visit was aimed at strengthening cultural ties between Zimbabwe and Goa and exploring the historical legacy of Zimbabwean Munumutapa princes, namely Father Miguel, son of Emperor Kapararidze, Dom Diogo, son of the Mutapa king Gatsi, Dom Constantino, and his brother Dom Joao, sons of the Emperor Mpande. These Munumutapa princes were educated in India and later became priests who served in Goa, India, Macau, China, and Bahia, Brazil. The visit thus presented an opportunity to research and document Zimbabwe's contribution to early civilization and Christianity. The visit enabled the Zimbabwean research team to establish initial contact with Indian academics and historians who provided detailed insights into the Goa archives, which contain rich historical collections of Portuguese activities in Goa and sub-Saharan Africa. Cabinet also received a report on Honorable Vice President Colonel retired Dr. KCD Mohadi's attendance at the Kakaro and Kavalamanja commemorations in Zambia, which were held from the 6th to the 7th of March 2026. The Vice President's attendance at the Kakaro and Kavalamanja commemorations was related to his previous tour of Zimbabwe's Liberation War heritage sites in the Southern African Development Community SADC region in August last year. The Vice President led the 48th Kavalamanja commemorations, which began with a candle lighting ceremony at the Kakaro Shrine, honoring Zimbabwean guerrilla fighters, Zambian army personnel, and civilians who died in 1978 Rhodesian attack. The Vice President expressed gratitude to the Republic of Zambia for the support rendered to Zimbabwe during the struggle for independence. He also gifted the community with 2 boreholes, a classroom block, and a shrine. Additionally, rehabilitation works are ongoing at Kakaro site as well as 4 other key shrines in Zambia to preserve the sites. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister, for presenting today's cabinet highlights. Allow me to move to the first round of 3 questions. Then we will allow Honorable Minister to respond to those questions. Over to you, colleagues.
question is directed to the Minister of Finance from Owen Mandela.
Thank you, Chair Honorable Sota. Thank you, Owen, for your question regarding the cost of doing business. We intended to reduce fees and levies for about 12 sectors. So far, we've done 9. We have 3 more to go. So today we covered the crops and horticulture, fisheries, and fertilizer are subsectors. You're right that some of the regulators may see a drop in revenue, and we as Treasury stand ready to fill in any legitimate gaps in revenue which jeopardize the efficiency of operations for the entity, because we like it to keep regulating the various sectors that they regulate. So we wouldn't want them to suffer from this exercise and have their capacity impaired. So we stand ready to support them with a budget as Treasury for them to remain viable and effective. Besides, by lowering the cost of doing business, the assumption is certainly that's what we see happening, is that the businesses that are being regulated will make a bit more money, they pay more taxes in other ways, whether it's corporate tax or otherwise. So Treasury should be able to raise a bit more revenue as well from this process and rechannel some of that back to those regulators that have been impaired by this exercise. So we'll keep going with the 3 other sectors that are coming through in the next few weeks, and the exercise will be completed, and then we'll follow up with the statutory instruments to make sure that we've got the force of law behind these reductions in the cost of doing business. Thank you. It went off? You couldn't hear me? Should I repeat? I don't know when it went off. Thanks very much. I said that Treasury stands ready to support those entities, regulatory entities, that whose revenues will come under pressure from this reduction in fees and levies. And besides, entities that are being regulated in the corporate sector should make a bit more money. So Treasury should also raise a bit more funding from them, resources from the corporate taxes and so forth. So we should have some revenue to support these entities. As I said, then we'll proceed as well with enacting the various statutory instruments which will bring the force of law behind these reductions in levies and fees over the next few weeks. And we intend to complete the entire exercise in the next few weeks when we cover the remaining 3 sectors. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. The second question from Owen Mandela is directed to Honorable J.G. Moyo.
Thank you very much. And I want to salute our newsmen for covering very comprehensively the Sustainable Energy Week, which was held in Victoria Falls under the auspices of SADC and the energy efficiency unit that is based in Namibia. I want to thank you very much, all of you. But with regards to your question on electric vehicle charging station safety, we know that the number of companies that have already ordered electric vehicles in the country, and some of them are coming up with their charging stations. And it is these charging stations that we are worried about without regulations so that we maintain safety, we also maintain network stability, and we ensure that they conform to both nationally and internationally agreed equipment standards. To that extent, Cabinet also approved a joint venture agreement between ZESA Enterprises and a Chinese company so that we can order approved chargers from China in the initial, but with a view to making all our chargers being produced by our ZESA Enterprises. This is the short term that we want to do, but at the same time, it has to be governed by regulations. And these regulations are what we are crafting, and we will be publishing them very soon. And this EV overseas will be regulated like all other electricals. This is to ensure for safety, and that safety can include fire. And we are afraid if you don't have very good regulated chargers, your vehicles might burn. And we are looking at those which have come in the country, and we are making sure that they conform to standards. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Ministers, for responding to those questions. We now move to the last round, again of 3 questions. Over to you first. Yes.
Thank you, Chief. Mine is directed to the Minister of Finance, Richmond Radio Zimbabwe. Richmond Radio Zimbabwe. I direct mine to the Minister of Finance regarding the welcome reduction of levies. But I don't know what government is doing to ensure a timeless implementation of these reductions. Because as soon as the public and the trading public hear that there are such reductions, after using 8 tonight, tomorrow morning they don't want to pay what they had been paid because they had that the levies have been reduced to so much. I don't know how much time people must expect to see the reductions implemented.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Even Mabuda from ZTNY. My question is directed to the Minister of Finance. Of course, there's the presentation that speaks to the element of costs as well as the reduction. But also from Treasury, there's also been communication that speaks to the National Standard Price List, as well as the communication that is speaking to there being, of course, the communication that would follow with the specifics of that. For the purposes of clarity, if the Minister could give us an indication in terms of what that would translate to, and perhaps if this price list is ready, or perhaps when that will be communicated. Thank you.
Any further questions? Over to you, Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much. Both questions are directed to the Minister of Finance, one from Richmond Siakurima, and the second one from Eben Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Richmond. Yes, indeed, once we announced that we've reduced fees, the public is waiting for almost an immediate implementation, at least by close of business tomorrow. But unfortunately, it doesn't work like that. It takes a bit of time. Why? Because the lawyers have to search the right statutory instruments, see which ones need to be repealed or reversed or amended in order to effect these new proposals, decisions. So it will take a little bit of time. I think we've seen with the previous announcements in Richmond, it took for a couple of months to see some of them coming through. It will happen. I urge the public to be patient. Cabinet has made a decision. We're not reversing these decisions, so I can assure the public that we will come through and implement these through the force of law. Of course, without a statutory instrument, one cannot really implement this, and that is needed first. So the public must wait for the SIs to come out before they then demand for implementation of these new prices or fees and levies. Now, turning to the next question on the National Standard Price List, finally we have come up with this National Standard Price List. Why did we do that? The reason really is that we had noticed that there's been overpricing by suppliers to a government for what government consumes in terms of goods and services. So we decided to go out there and then analyze, research, and then come up with this price list, which really says that
if you're procuring a pen or bond paper or whatever locally, then that price should be within a specific range. And anything above that specified range is then seen as overpricing, and therefore the system should be able to reject it. And this has been uploaded onto the e-procurement system, which is managed by the PRAS, which manages procurement within government. So you asked about where this price list is sitting. If you check on the website for PRAS, or indeed for the Ministry of Finance, you should be able to see the link and click that link, and then you will see what has been included on that price list. So basically we've targeted all the things that government typically procures locally in the main, and that's the price list that we've come up with. And we've also said, look, if our preference as well as government, being a large consumer of goods and services within the economy, that we prefer to be paid, or rather to pay out in ZiG for any supply of locally produced goods. That will promote the demand for local currency. And I'm pleased that the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe has issued an accompanying statement, following my statement, to assure anybody who wishes to source foreign currency for legitimate imports, they can approach their bank, who then approach central bank to be able to source any US dollars that they so require. We have enough US dollars to cover any demand for imports in ZiG. We've got $1.2 billion, $1.5 billion in reserves in hard currency, including gold, and we're able to cover the $400 billion dollars in worth of ZiG that is in circulation. So we've enough cover. There's no reason to worry about any access to foreign currency. All we're doing here is making sure that there is order in government procurement processes within certain price ranges that are reasonable, and we don't overpay. If we don't overpay, then we'll make sure there's no over-contracting, then we won't fall behind in terms of our paying our contractors. And then we prefer, obviously, to paying in ZiG as a priority for locally sourced goods. If you are sourcing goods abroad, outside, because they can't be found locally, we will pay in US dollars for that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Ministers, for responding to those questions. Before we close, Owen, anything?
Yeah, just one additional question in relation to the National Standard Price List, Minister. There are fears out there that once you start paying local contractors in the ZiG currency, those years of exchange rate volatilities will come back, with contractors going to the black market to seek foreign currency. Of course, you have spoken about the sufficient foreign currency cover in the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe, but just an assurance that we will not go back to those years.
Thank you very much. First of all, if these contractors or suppliers are seeking legitimate foreign currency for legitimate import, foreign currency is available through the formal banking system, and we're assured of that through the central bank. So I can assure them that in the nation that there is adequate foreign currency. And then basically for those then who may wish to go to alternative markets, again, you know, what used to happen in the past is that we had excess liquidity sloshing around, and now we don't. So really what should happen is, if we're insisting that we'll pay out in ZiG, the economics dictates that the domestic currency should appreciate. What the public is worrying about, what other players are worrying about, is that they feel there is again liquidity sloshing around, and therefore this will cause the currency to depreciate. But it can go the other way. It can also appreciate, provided with this liquidity constraint. Once you have a liquidity constraint, a money supply constraint in ZiG, any demand for ZiG should see the price of ZiG appreciating, or rather the exchange rate appreciating. So it can go that way as well. and not just to depreciate. But I can assure you that there's no excess liquidity sloshing around. We have effective instruments to mop up any excess liquidity, including NCDs, higher policy rates, and other almost or open market operational instruments to deploy in order for us to mop up our liquidity. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Ministers. We've come to the end of today's post-cabinet press briefing.